Live from KSAT 12, the 6 o'clock news starts right now.
Cautiously optimistic. That's how San Antonio's police chief described his view of the city's ongoing plan to reduce violent crime.
The chief talking after analysis of the plan's early stages showed decreases in certain violent street crimes. Here to tell us about the results so far, City Hall reporter Garrett Berger. Garrett, what has the city done so far?
Well, it's enacted the very first part of a plan that was thought up by UTSA criminologists. Now, that part is focused on hotspot policing. That's basically finding 100-meter wide grid squares throughout the city where the most violent street crime happens. That's things like murders, non-family related aggravated assaults, and robberies. And then making sure that officers are highly visible there. The tactic boils down to having the officers sit in the hotspots with the lights on their cruisers flashing during peak crime hours for about 15 minutes at a time. The hotspots are adjusted every 60 days, and SCPD has completed 2 rounds so far of this treatment. Some hotspots were in both rounds. Now, there haven't been any arrests tied to this tactic specifically, the chief said, but UTSA researchers presented the city council with data today that showed the hotspots saw larger decreases in violent street crime than the city had as a whole. However, they were careful to avoid drawing any line between cause and effect quite yet.
There is some more sophisticated analyses that we do when we have a year's worth of data to work with that more directly addresses the cause and effect question, but we're not there yet.
Now, the hotspot policing approach is just the first part of the overall 3-pronged plan to reduce violent crime. Later phases are expected to focus more on the upstream causes to help with more long-term solutions. Now, the next phase is expected to involve multiple city departments and outside organizations as they try to figure out how to tackle the root causes of some of the more violent crime-prone areas of the city. Live at City Hall, I'm Garrett Berger, KSAT 12 News.
Thank you, Garrett. An Air Force major convicted in the death of his wife is now appealing his sentence 4 months after it was handed down.
Andre McDonald back in court today. In January, he was found not guilty of the murder of his wife, Andreen McDonald, but convicted on a charge of manslaughter. Andreen McDonald's burned remains were found months after she disappeared in 2019. Her husband, Andre, sentenced to 20 years in prison for manslaughter earlier this year. Plus another 5 years for tampering with evidence in this case. Today, his attorney said they will appeal the verdicts and sentences in both charges.
In the case where he was convicted of manslaughter, the issues are there's motion to suppress issues, there's evidentiary issues, and there's a deadly weapon finding. The court found that his foot was a deadly weapon, and we're appealing that. Same with the tampering with evidence case.
McDonald was transferred to Bexar County from a Texas prison for today's hearing. The appeals process could take up to a year or more. He was her one-time boyfriend, and his murder trial in the death of that Trinity University student could be close to wrapping up. Today, the state rested in the Mark Howerton retrial. Howerton charged in the 2017 murder of his girlfriend, Kaylee Mandotti. The last thing the state showed the jury before arresting 2 audio recordings of the lead investigators' interviews with Howerton. Before the defense called their first witness up, they requested a mistrial, saying the state had not proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Howerton committed murder. That mistrial motion was denied. The defense will continue their case tomorrow morning if found guilty. Howerton is facing up to life in prison. He showed up outside of a gym looking to meet up with a woman. Now police are looking for the men who shot him and stole his car. That shooting happened around 7 this morning at a Planet Fitness on North General McMullen. SAPD says the man went to that parking lot hoping to see the woman he'd met online. Officers say they aren't sure if that woman actually showed up, but 3 men began arguing with the victim. Police say they shot the man and drove off in his car.
First, it sounded like somebody dropping weights. That's how loud it was. Everybody just ducking and running, and people around the counter just running for their lives.
San Antonio police say the man was shot in his side and the groin. He was taken to a nearby hospital in critical condition. Those suspects have so far not been found. They tried to rescue him and save his life.
Tonight, we know the name of the man killed in a downtown high-rise apartment fire. That victim has been identified by the Bexar County Medical Examiner as 69-year-old Gilbert Dalfina. Dalfina died as a result of smoke inhalation after a fire at the Villa Hermosa apartments on North Flores. Arson investigators still looking into the cause.
The Hondo Police Department investigating $20,000 stolen from a parent-teacher organization. That money was cleared from the Meyer Elementary PTO bank account on Friday, and Hondo police say their investigation may discover that it was actually more than 20 grand. Investigators say they know who is likely responsible, but since she has not been charged in this case, we are not naming her. Parent-teacher organizations are usually standalone groups that raise money to improve students' educational experiences. Governor Greg Abbott has appointed an interim attorney general after Ken Paxton's impeachment. John Scott will serve as interim AG. Scott previously served in the attorney general's office and as secretary of state. Abbott appointed him to the state's chief election officer in October 2021. He served there until December 2022. Scott left before the state Senate voted to confirm his appointment. And by the way, the governor's announcement about this did not mention Ken Paxton. Well, this legislative session in the state capitol has been unique, to say the least.
Yeah, from that impeachment to bills that impact schools, mental health, and the fight over property taxes. Max Massey spoke with two local lawmakers on both sides of the aisle who say it is not over yet.
No, the session is not over.
There's some unfinished business, and I'm almost confident the governor's going to be calling us back.
This legislative session started January 10th. Technically, it ended this week, but there is still unfinished business, especially when it comes to property taxes.
Increasing homestead exemptions to $100,000 from the current 40 would mean that if you owned a home that was appraised at, let's say, $125,000 or $150,000, you would only pay on the $25,000 or the $50,000.
And of course, the big question at the border.
So we've got to shore up the border, and we have some pretty good initiatives there that I was hoping that we would get done, and we just didn't. And so we're going to be definitely going back.
And both lawmakers assuring me that regardless of the headlines, the drama, and the fiery debates, there was legislation passed that's going to help families here at home.
I think there's some mental health funding that occurred that improved. I think increasing the maternal care for Medicare patients to 12 months from 6 months without having them have to jump through hoops, that's going to help a lot of families.
And Randolph Air Force Base sits in my district, so being able to meet with them and carry some legislation that got to the governor's desk, and we already have one signed by the governor, which was a transportation one for military bases, and it's going to provide jobs for Texans, plus get work done at the bases that need to be done through TxDOT.
But for now, we wait for Friday to see what happens next.
We'll be back, obviously, in session as a Senate. We're going to have to huddle up and discuss what our options are. I'm hopeful that Lieutenant Governor, the governor, and the speaker will be talking.
Max Massey, KSAT 12 News.
Now, coming up at 6:30, we focus on the legislative fight over property taxes, the differences in the House and Senate versions, and that public rift between the governor and the lieutenant governor. It's in our KSAT Q&A at 6:30.
Take a live look outside right now. 87 degrees out there, light fluffy clouds, kind of a ditto day really from yesterday.
I like that.
A few more ditto days on the
go.
way, but we do see our weather patterns shifting, especially as we get into the weekend.
Do you think people at home know what dittos are? Do you think I'm dating myself with that, maybe?
Maybe.
Okay, all right.
Come to think of it, if you asked me like 10, 15 years ago, I'd say, oh, we all know.
Yeah, I know.
Repetitive, basically.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Let's call it a Control-C, Control-V day.
There you go.
Oh, wow.
Copy and paste day.
There we
like
go.
it.
Yeah, okay.
That's what I'm here for. All right. So look at the radar over the past couple of hours. We had the sea breeze kick in, and that kicked off a few showers closer to the coastline, basically Hallettsville, Tequero, Yorktown, Kennedy, Karnes City area. I think this will be a similar trend tomorrow, but this action is all fizzling out as we speak. You look at the rainfall that it dropped. Everywhere you see the blue or green on the screen, that's where we had these coastal showers pop up. And around Cuero, this is the second day in a row. in Dimmick County that we've had some of these pop-up showers. City of Cuero just had one, 0.2 inches. You get just south and about a half an inch. Wherever you see the green on the screen, it's a minimum of half inch estimated by the radar, but nothing around town. We'll talk more about our rain chances when they return and a look back at the month temperature-wise in just a bit.
All right, thanks, Adam. Let's take a look now at traffic out there. This is I-10 at Probant. Really no big traffic tie-ups to tell you about. Both directions moving smoothly, but it looks like the westbound lanes are the ones that are going slower out there this evening.
There is a barrier for domestic violence victims you might not think of. Translation.
Those who don't speak English, they often stay in abusive relationships where there's not help available that they can understand. But a survivor tells our Courtney Friedman life-saving local services are available in any language.
Ada Vilas immigrated to the United States for a relationship that quickly turned dangerous.
Al no tener conocimiento de las leyes, de los derechos de las mujeres.
She didn't really know of her rights while she was here. So there was a lot of control in that relationship of like, if you leave, I'm gonna do this. She said that even for her son, there was a lot of verbal, emotional abuse to both of them, economic abuse.
Vilas does not speak English and was scared there would be no one to help her. But when she finally reached out to the Battered Women and Children's Shelter 2 months ago, Rita Rodriguez, who is bilingual, became her case manager.
¿Ves la luz? Al final del camino.
It made a huge difference on her, that she even felt like she could see the light, because whenever you try to seek help, if just to communicate, it can be sometimes so difficult.
Allowing a survivor to speak their native language makes them more comfortable talking about their most painful moments. And Family Violence Prevention Services, which runs the shelter, offers help in almost all languages.
Here at the shelter, they contract with a company called MasterWords. So if a case manager, a counselor, or even a legal advisor needs help with translation for the client, they just call a translator and they hop on a Zoom call, or they can come here in person.
Vilas, now free and empowered, is taking classes, learning English and planning her life. She hopes others will see that a language barrier is never a barrier to safety.
Que no se queden calladas y que sí pidan ayuda.
It's not worth being in that situation because of that, because we're here to help them no matter what language they speak.
Courtney Friedman, KSAT 12 News.
Help is out there. If you or someone you know is dealing with domestic violence, call Family Violence Prevention Services at 210-733-8810. We have a list of resources on our website at ksat.com/domestic violence.
Still ahead on the news at 6 with the weather getting warmer. That means using more power to keep your place cool. After the break, how ERCOT plans to give you more notice if you need to conserve energy.
Welcome back. I'm Stefania Jimenez, and here's what we're working on for you tonight on The Night Beat. A family is begging for anybody who knows anything about their daughter's murder to come forward. Police arrested a suspect, but the family wants to make sure that that person gets convicted. Plus, any end in sight? Yeah, we've told you about the ongoing construction on the St. Mary's Strip. If you drive down the road, it might look like renovations really have a long way to go, but city workers are saying that the project is making progress. We'll show you that and so much more tonight on The Night Beat.
Thank you, Stephanie. Well, today the state's power regulator, ERCOT, releasing a new dashboard designed to give you a 3 to 5 day warning if you need to conserve energy.
Our Camelia Juarez tells us how the state's electric grid operator is preparing to alert Texans during these hot summer months.
ERCOT launched the Texas Advisory and Notification System, or Texans.
The public is following ERCOT and how the grid is performing more closely than ever before.
CEO of ERCOT, Pablo Vega, says the system consists of 4 alerts to help Texans stay up to date with any changes to the state's electric grid. The first level reports that the grid is normal and balanced. The second is the ERCOT Weather Watch, meaning the grid is normal, but significant weather could impact demand, like a heat wave causing people to crank up the AC.
When an ERCOT Weather Watch is issued, this earlier 3 to 5 day look ahead gives the public notification of possible higher demand due to forecasted conditions, with an ask to keep an ear out for more information should conditions change.
The third alert would ask customers to conserve power, and the fourth would be an emergency alert.
It is important to note that just because ERCOT issues a weather watch or a voluntary conservation notice, it does not mean that we are in or expect to be in emergency conditions.
The notifications can be found on ERCOT's social media pages or on the ERCOT website. Camalia Juarez, KSAT 12 News.
Okay, we're going to try to make Ditto cool again. While we do that, another beautiful day out there, Adam.
I left my thermometer making materials right here.
Just get caught right
We're
there.
so used to it. I honestly.
We are used to it around here. Let me just push those aside quickly. Always popping bulbs, making therms, right? Yes, we are around here. Always working on the thermometers. Anyway, speaking of thermometers, let's take a look at the day today, and then, of course, the look at the whole month. As we are finishing May, we'll see how we've wrapped up so far. 88 our high today, the morning low of 67. Both of those a little below average. And you want to look at May as a whole, we've been just slightly below average. We're talking 0.2 of a degree below average. Notice the beginning of the month, we had several days just barely above average. And then toward the middle and end of the month, especially when we got the rain, temperatures dipped a little below average to offset it. The coolest was 58 degrees, the warmest 94, and that's the hottest we've been so far this season. Right now, 93 Cotulla, 92 Laredo. Those are the warmest locations. Kennedy 86, Pleasanton at 90, but otherwise mostly in the 80s. 85 Bandera and Comfort, 86 in Bulverde, Stinson Airport on the south side at 88, and officially in town we're at 87. Notice the trend going forward, upper 80s, barely hitting 90 degrees. The average high is 90. We're going to be at and slightly below that. So running a little below average. I think that's going to be the trend as we go into the first week of June, at least for the most part. A few of those showers popped up along the Gulf coastline and a little inland, the typical locations that can get some of those coastal showers from Hallettsville to Cuero to Yorktown, but then they dissipate. And that could be the case the next couple of days, but we'll all get in on some action, or at least the chance of some action by this weekend and into next week. Right now, the activity is all in eastern New Mexico and parts of far west Texas there, where some severe weather is popping up this afternoon. We've got this little bump, this ridge axis right over us right now in the upper level flow, and that's keeping us quiet with fair weather and basically blue skies, just those puffy cumulus clouds. But it's flanked by two low pressure systems, one upper level low near the Four Corners and Desert Southwest, and another one just off the coast of Florida. And this one here, if it was later in the season and we had warmer temperatures in the Gulf, this one would most likely turn into a tropical system. But right now it's just got a lot of moisture and not developing into anything tropical in terms of a depression or a storm. As our pattern shifts into the weekend, upper level high, the weak one, it's not the big blue H, this is a little blue H. It's going to break down and it's going to open the door for disturbances to come in off the Pacific. And that's what we're going to see, our upper level flow coming in from the west and southwest. And embedded within it, see these red areas? That's rain-making energy. You need some ingredients to generate showers and thunderstorms this time of year. We'll have a little bit of instability by this weekend. We'll have some moisture in place, and then the triggering mechanism, some upper level energy that's going to move in. Don't expect much in terms of coverage. We're talking 20% of our area on Saturday, Sunday through the middle of next week, only about 30%. So isolated in nature or very widely separated, primarily in the afternoon hours when we have our peak heating of the day. As for the month of May here in San Antonio, 3.92 inches. That's about a half an inch below average. And for the year, we're almost an inch below average. Tomorrow morning, some low clouds early at 69 degrees and then sunny and 89. A stray coastal shower, but that's it. We'll be 93 Carrizo Springs tomorrow, 86 in Timberwood Park, Lavernia 89, and Lackland area 89 for the high. Those temperatures, they don't change much. We'll be at to slightly below average for this time of year. And you know, it is that time of year where we typically don't see big temperature swings, and we're just following suit to what we would typically see this time of year.
All right, thanks, Adam.
All right, football, basketball, softball, it is tough to repeat.
That's absolutely right. And we're talking about the Hennas specifically. It seems like every May we're talking about the Hennas going for a state title, and they have a chance to win back-to-back titles for the first time in program history. When we come back, we'll take you out to Austin for the highlights of the Class 1A state title game. Plus, Johnson baseball is back in the regional final, looking for a trip to state for the first time in a while. Got that too next.
We're just confident. I mean, we can come back from 0-1 and we could win 2 games in a row, and I think we could hit anybody. So it just shows that, we could come out on top.
The Jaguars have been through a lot of adversity during this playoff run, and now they're one series victory away from the state tournament in big board sports. But first, we've got a state championship rematch in the UIL Class 1A title game. Defending state champs tennis softball taking on Hermley. Cowgirls fall behind early in this one. Pick this one up in the top of the first. 2 on. Summer Smith drops a base hit into shallow right. Syria Calloway comes in to score from second, part of a 3-run inning, and Hermley takes a 3-0 lead after 1. Top 4, it's now a 5-0 lead, and Smith strikes again, this time with a base hit up the middle. Lady Cardinals pouring it on, up 6-0, and D'Hennis has no answer today. Cowgirls come up short of defending their title with a 9-0 loss. We'll hear from the team tonight on the Night Beat. In high school baseball, Johnson is back in the regional final, looking for their first trip to state since 2016. The Jaguars faced elimination in back-to-back weeks. They dropped their first games against Lake Travis and Far San Juan Alamo in the 3rd round and regional semifinals, but they rallied to win the final 2 games of both series in advance. Now Johnson is one of 5 teams from the greater San Antonio area left standing, but more importantly, they're the only team from San Antonio proper left, and they love representing the Alamo City.
Being one of the only schools left in this region is really cool. Seeing this team kind of build together, build a lot of momentum over the last couple of weeks has been huge. And just one more week with the guys, this group of guys is amazing. So
we already graduated and we're still playing, so it's not as defeating graduating high school, but playing this far in the summer is pretty awesome. I think it's the best accomplishment. I've been, part of this organization for a while, and we've never done it like this before, so it's just exciting.
Game 1 between Johnson and Westlake is set for tomorrow night at 7 p.m. In Class 5A, Bernie Champion is currently enjoying one of the deepest runs in program history, and now they're 1 series away from their first berth in the state tournament. The Chargies rallied to win the final 2 games of their series against Corpus Christi Ray in the semifinals over the weekend and punched their ticket to the 5th round, while they'll face Leander Rouse in a 3-game set starting tomorrow night. This run means a lot to the team.
Ever since I was a kid, this has been my dream. I remember watching the guys from 5-6 years ago playing in playoffs, and as a kid it was always my dream to be in this spot, and now that we're here, I'm ready for it, and I think our team's ready too.
Literally 2 miles up the road, the Bernie Greyhounds have also advanced to the Class 4A regional final. Bernie survived a 3-game regional semifinal series against Robstown over the weekend to advance. What's it like for both the Greyhounds and Chargers to be successful at the same time in a city that's already enjoyed a lot of success recently?
Pretty cool. It's not very often that one town gets two of their high schools going this far in playoffs. So I feel like it brings them closer because we're cheering them on, they're cheering us on. So I feel like it brings the town together.
To get to this level for both Champion and for us is really a tribute to our kids and tribute to our community, because this is a tough region.
Bernie starts their regional final series tomorrow night at the Wolf at 7 p.m. against Sinton. Sinton is a tough draw, but it's going to be a great environment at the Wolf for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrew.
You got it.
Our KSAT Q&A is coming up next. If you are trying to keep track of what lawmakers are up to in Austin, hope your head is on a swivel. There is so much going on between property taxes in a special session, a very public rift now between the governor and lieutenant governor, and yes, that impeachment issue. So to talk about it all, we have Scott Braddock, editor of the Quorum Report, joining us now. Scott, thanks so much for being here. I know it's very busy for you and all things that you cover. I want to start with property taxes. That's the focus of this special session. There's some political strategy at play there, which we'll get to in a second. But can you talk talk about the differences in the House version of the property tax bill and the Senate version?
Well, I'll go with the current ones because, as you know, there have been variations of these plans all throughout the legislative session and now into the special session. Now, this special session, which is just about over now, it was very special, wasn't it? The House version now is what the governor asked for, and I will stress here that it's the first time, this week is the first time that Governor Abbott has been specific about what he wants lawmakers to do when it comes to giving you, the viewer, some kind of property tax relief. He has been silent about it all year while he's been on a roadshow about school vouchers. He could have been at the Capitol trying to broker a deal on this. But the House version right now is to do what's called tax compression. The easy way to think about that is that it would be the state writing a bigger check to local school districts, sending money down through the school funding formulas to pay and pick up a bigger part of the tab for public education, which, as you know, is the biggest chunk of your property tax bill, is the ISD in your area. The Senate version is going to be more politically popular. Lieutenant Governor Patrick has been pushing a homestead exemption increase. He started out this session talking about increasing it to $70,000, and it was kind of like an auction. At some point during the legislative session, the House came out with a plan to do a $100,000 exemption. And so then the Senate said, well, that sounds good to us. So now that's what the Senate's still going with, is a $100,000 property tax exemption for homesteads. So here you have two plans that are not alike, but it shouldn't be that hard. One of the veterans of the Capitol the other day was saying, how hard is it to give away $16 billion or $17 billion? Well, these guys are, proving to us now that it's difficult for them to do. But if you think about the campaign that Governor Abbott waged last year when he won, when he beat Beto O'Rourke, this was his biggest promise to Texans. And right now, he is not providing the kind of leadership it takes to get it done.
Is it becoming personal? Let me put it that way. Is that what's holding this whole thing up? Because like you said, they don't seem like they're that far apart. But you've got not only, it's not new that the speaker and the lieutenant governor are not getting along. It seemed unusual last night to me that the lieutenant governor came out and basically blasted the governor for siding with the House in this whole thing. Am I getting all the players right in this?
You've got it. Look, this is the most critical that I've ever seen Lieutenant Governor Patrick be of Governor Abbott. That has never been the case before. They've disagreed before, but this is just a public roasting of the governor by the lieutenant governor. And Patrick says, look, he's going to stand pat on this, and he's not going to change his mind about the policy prescription for this. And I would say, look, it's not unusual for the speaker and the lieutenant governor to disagree, no matter who those people are. When Patrick was the lieutenant governor and Speaker Strauss was there, they would disagree sometimes. There's a reason that there are three big leaders in Texas. There's a reason that it's an odd number. If two of them don't agree, the other one has to be the referee. And Governor Abbott, months ago, could have seen that Phelan and Patrick were not in agreement about this, and he should have sat them down and tried to broker some kind of deal, and he hasn't done that. Instead, he's called for a special session, and he's trying to order the legislature to do something specific, which, look, these folks don't work for the governor, and it's important for folks to understand that. The governor, lieutenant governor, the speaker, and the members of the House and Senate, they all work for you, the taxpayers. So they need to be working collaboratively to get this done, and they're not doing that. And the governor might be wise to give these folks a break. Like you said, Steve, they're angry with each other. At the end of a legislative session, after being stuck in the Capitol together for 5 months, the tempers flare, there are egos involved. Policy prescriptions sometimes are secondary to those things, and they could probably all use a break from each other. And that would also give the governor time to sell lawmakers on his plan and try to create some consensus. He's just not doing that right now.
At the end of the day, political infighting, that's nothing new. At the end of the day, is anything actually going to get done on property taxes? The House approved its version. They went ahead and adjourned for the special session.
They're done, yeah.
What does that mean for the Senate version and ultimately what the governor may or may not sign?
The House actually did two things. They approved the version that Governor Abbott likes, but they also outright rejected the plan that came over from the Senate. The Speaker ruled that, and I don't even necessarily agree with this, but he ruled that the Senate plan is not germane to what Governor Abbott asked for. There's a lot of case law on this and historical information about the fact that the governor's not really allowed, doesn't really have the power to dictate specific policies in his call for a special session, which that's what he's trying to do here. Instead, he's supposed to say, hey, look, you guys address property taxes. Then he could still go and talk to them about what he wants the plan to be. But I think he may have fumbled the ball right out of the gate on this special session by trying to overreach and tell lawmakers specifically what they need to do rather than working collaboratively with them. So I think we're still a long ways off from a resolution on this. But look, again, this was the top promise from Governor Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Patrick, was to offer people property tax relief, and they ain't getting it done right now.
Yeah. Let's talk about Attorney General Ken Paxton and what's happening with the impeachment and where we're looking forward to the Senate. Obviously, they're going to lay out the case against him, and obviously the Senate will decide whether or not he's guilty. Does that play out with Ken Paxton's wife being a state senator? Do you think she will be part of that process and weigh in? And I know you well enough to know that you've probably done some head counting on whether or not you think he will be found guilty in the Senate.
Trying to figure it out. Doing head counts right now is very difficult. I can tell you that senators, they're not just putting out statements that say that they don't want to talk about this. They're really not talking about it, even privately. I think to their credit, they're taking their role very seriously as the jurors in this trial, which is what we're going to see. Coming up on June 20th, the Senate will convene to consider rules for the way that the trial is going to be carried out. And the Senate also decided that the trial needs to start before the end of August. So we have some rough timeline already. As far as Angela Paxton, the wife of Ken Paxton, who is a state senator from Collin County up in DFW, not clear what she's going to do. The Texas Constitution says that all senators need to sit for the trial. So I don't know if that means that if she can just sit there and then not vote at the end or vote present. I think that would be one way to handle it. We'll see what they come up with. But it is interesting to note this, that if she recuses herself and if another senator has to recuse himself, and there's another senator, I can think of 3 right now who might have to recuse themselves for different reasons. If that happens, then the threshold for removing him from office goes down. If the entire Senate is there, it's 21 votes. But if 2 or 3 people are gone, it goes down to 20 votes and then 19 votes, and you don't have to have as many Republicans voting with all the Democrats, who I assume are all going to vote to remove Paxton. The coalition gets a little smaller to get the job done of removing him. That's going to be a key thing to watch going forward over the summer.
Scott, quickly, because we're running out of time, but do you think the fact that we have not heard the lieutenant governor or the governor come out in support of Attorney General Paxton says anything?
For Patrick's part, it's I think he's handling it very responsibly. I thought he might be dismissive of this. Instead, in an interview that he gave to a TV station in Dallas, he said that the Senate's going to take their duty very seriously. There's probably some back channeling going on with the governor right now. I've heard some chatter about that, but he's not going to say anything either. It is telling that he went ahead and appointed an interim attorney general. He may want the person, the guy who was appointed today, John Scott, who so far has kind of been a fixer for Abbott. Previously, he was Secretary of State. You might remember that. Mm-hmm. He may go in there and clean house. It may be a signal, without saying anything publicly, that appointment might be a signal that Abbott is ready to move on from Ken Paxton.
Scott Braddock, the regular session over, but really far from it. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again soon. Thanks so much for being here.
All these sessions are special.
Yeah, they are. Thank you, Scott. We'll be right back.